Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to my presentation on tort liability. Tort liability. Tort law is based on legal premise that individuals are liable for the consequences of their own conduct or lack of conduct when such actions result in injuries to others, and that is from Tort Liability 101, when are teachers liable? In a classroom setting, tort law is the most common area of the law that subjects teachers to personal liability. And the two main categories of tort liability are intentional and negligent torts. Intentional torts are attempts or intends to cause harm to another. For intent to exist, this individual must be aware that injury will or could be the result of the act. Four common types of intentional torts in an educational setting are assault, battery, false imprisonment, and defamation. Negligent torts. Four categories of negligence: duty, breach, proximate cause, and injury. First case I want to discuss is the Barrett versus Unified School District 259. This is where Robert Alexander, a 12th grade high school student at Southeast High School in Wichita, Kansas. The student athlete was at practice. I believe this was a 2-a-day. When they first started practice, I think it was about 83 degrees out. So they came out for the second session, and I think the temperatures were near 100. The student complained of not feeling well during the second session of practice. One of the coaches directed him to sit out and go get a drink. The player returned to the cardio stations after the break, but he would collapse coming off the field. The student athlete would pass away the following day. A wrongful death action was filed for negligence against the USD 259 and Coach Dan Johnson by the player's mother, Frances Barrett. The response to case one, I believe the reactive measures would be in our district, the athletic department and human resources would get involved to make sure all proper procedures were followed and to get a firsthand written report from the coach or coaches before moving forward. Some proactive measures that could be taken in this situation, and this is something that is occurring quite frequently, not only in the high school ranks, but in the college ranks. There was a big case at the University of Maryland a couple of years ago where the head coach has been since let go. The players could be checked out by training staff before heading out to the field for the second session of practice with the temperatures increasing. When the player told the assistant coach he wasn't feeling well, the coach could have sent him inside to be checked out and cool off by getting his pads off. Also, a more stringent physical should be taking place before these players are allowed to participate under such measures. The player ended up having, the result was actually of death was a heat stroke. Case number two, Mitchell versus Cedar Rapids Community School District. This is a mother of a special education student sued the student school district for damages the student sustained in an after-school off-campus sexual assault by another student. A jury found the school district negligent in failing to adequately supervise the special education student and awarded damages. So in this situation, two students, both in the special education department, both on IEPs. One was 14, the other was 19, and teachers had seen them interacting physically in the hallways. And so that led to the situation where the two students, two of the younger students skipped one of the classes to meet up with the 19-year-old, which then led to the assault. Some reactive measures: the district would check to see if all school policies were followed. If so, the educators would likely remain in the classroom. If not, teacher or teachers would be put on temporary leave of absence until the lawsuit was settled. In this case, the teachers checked all the boxes on that particular day. One of the teachers should have contacted the student's mom when they saw said student being physical with a 19-year-old student in the hallways, or at least looked more into the situation. No student should be able to leave school property without being questioned. So I believe that falls on the school itself, that they should have better security in place that does not allow students to leave school grounds without being, especially if underage, being taken out by a parent or legal guardian. Third case, Barnett versus Caldwell. This was a high school student, Antoine Williams, and another student were engaging in horseplay in a school in southwest Atlanta. Teacher Phyllis Caldwell left her classroom unattended, and she asked another teacher to listen out instead of actually visibly watching the classroom, which would mean that teacher was likely leaving her class unattended as well. Ms. Caldwell did not instruct the hall monitor to watch her class. Antoine's parents sued Caldwell for wrong death based on negligent supervision as she left the classroom. The trial court found in favor of the teacher as her absence from the classroom was a discretionary act, using her personal judgment that entitled her to official immunity from the duty to supervise the students in the classroom. This basically means that a public official would not be liable for injuries to others as long as the official was exerting official authority. In this case, the district would check to see if all school policies were followed. If so, the educators would likely remain in the classroom. If not, teachers would be put on temporary leave of absence until the lawsuit was settled. This is a tricky case, to be honest, because this is something that happens quite frequently, especially in between periods. Teachers are often asked to be present in the hallways while having students in the classroom in that 3 to 5 minute window that students have to get from one period to the next. So it is a little bit difficult to be in all places at once. Ultimately, you are in charge of that classroom, though. As teachers, we really need to have a system in place where our classroom is being monitored and not just listened to when we must leave the classroom unattended. However, like I said, this is a bit tricky between periods. Case number 4, NM versus Anchorage School District. At Rogers Park Elementary, a kindergartner was walking across the street to meet his mother when he fell, tripped over a stump that had not been removed from the sidewalk. It was underneath some debris. The injuries have permanently altered the student's life. The student fell on one of the sticks and punctured the child's eye socket, reaching the frontal lobe of his brain. The family claimed the district was negligent in allowing the stumps to remain on a path trafficked heavily by small children. The family was awarded $4.5 million plus other money for emotional distress suffered for the parents. This decision is the largest civil judgment ever against the Anchorage School District. For this student, the injury damaged the frontal lobe of his brain. Also, some of the things it affected the part that regulates hunger and appetite, and sleep, body temperature, and even the onset of puberty. In this case, the school would document the incident and follow policy to work with those involved in the lawsuit. The school maintenance team could have cleaned up the area and removed the stump. Until the stump was removed, knowing there would be a mass of students leaving each day, the district could have put up caution tape or orange cones in front of the stump and debris for those students to be aware that there was something that was going to be in their way. The last case I want to talk about is Hall versus Jones in Alabama. The incident arose where a fight between two teenage boys in a gym class or physical education class engaged in a game of basketball where a fight broke out between the two boys. Other students in the gym intervened, but the two boys continued to talk back and forth with insults. And another third student shoved one of the other students, one of the two students into the other, and then the other. So the student responded by slamming the other boy into some metal stairs. The student suffered serious head injuries. The mother did drop her suit against the other two physical education teachers, but she did continue to pursue the lawsuit against Jones. Jones' appeal of the decision was denied by the circuit court on the grounds that he had failed to file it within generally accepted reasonable time frame of 42 days, which the other two teachers did. He also failed to include any statement of circumstances that would show good cause as to why the court should consider his petition. Again, the teacher left the area to go to another part of the gym to tell the girls' physical education teacher a message from the math teacher, leaving his group of students unattended. The teachers involved would probably write up an incident report here. Administration would check school cameras in the gym to see specifics. Some proactive measures: the teacher could have sent a responsible student to tell the girls' physical education teacher the message, and the teacher could have reacted in a quicker manner to the altercation. And this is my reference page for this presentation. I hope you enjoyed it, and I look forward to watching some of you guys' videos as well. Have a good night.